Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. Now that the CDC has released its guidelines on what schools should consider doing in order to reopen, I thought that I should address this because just was it last week or the week before, I talked about the video of the school that reopened in Canada and some of the pretty psychologically damaging things that kids are going to encounter there. And so I actually mused in that video, is this what we're going to be like in America? And I said, probably. We're probably going to be like that in the United States as well, but I wasn't sure. So when I first started reading these new guidelines by CDC, I was not actually able to read them on the PDF from the CDC at first. At first, all I was seeing were some memes like these. And which have the information. It says right at the top, new CDC guidelines for reopening schools. And then there's this one also. So that is what I was originally just going to do a video with, were just those. But then someone actually shared the actual PDF from the CDC. Thank you, Carrie, for sending this to me. And I'm glad because I noticed that a lot of people were starting to say that the two images that I showed you were false and that they were spreading false information. And in fact, when I saw this blue one on Instagram, there was one of those fact checker screens over top of it, and it said partially false. And so I was curious about what it would say was wrong with it. So I clicked on it to see why it was partially false. And the only thing that it said was wrong with it was that the guidelines are recommendations, not rules. But if you actually read through this meme here, it doesn't say that they're rules. So to me, that's just the fact checker's way of kind of getting less people to consider this to be credible. They don't want people to see what the guidelines are for the schools. I think that even though the CDC posted them, they're not really, they're not used to people actually reading this stuff on their website. So you see a lot of people saying things about the images being posted by anti-vaxxers with bad information on them. Well, no, you know what? After I got this PDF, I compared them. Now, if you notice this white one and this blue one, they're both exactly the same printing. It's just different background. And so I compared them with the PDF from the CDC. There is no false information on those. I don't know what the people are referring to. All that they really are is just a summary of what is written in here. So now I'm just going to show you quickly some of the things that are on this actual PDF so that you can see that, yeah, they are comparable. But I'm going to use the memes just to go over step by step what they're going to be doing, just because it's a lot easier and there's not as much reading required. Now, I'm not sure if I can include this PDF in my description box for this video. I'm not very tech savvy, so I'm going to see if I can. If not, I'll just leave a link for the CDC website and you can click on there and you can find this on your own. But yeah, as you can see, this is CDC Activities Initiatives for COVID-19 Response.pdf, interim guidance for schools and day camps. So you just go through here and yeah, it does say all of the new guidelines. So teaching and reinforcing washing hands, teach and reinforce use of face coverings among all staff. Now, that's one thing that I actually do want to talk about, because the very first one, I believe it's the first one that's on the meme, is about the masks, and it says that masks for kids over 2. And while this does say that, this is a little bit more detailed than what that is. So I did want to go over this here. It says, teach and reinforce use of face coverings among all staff. Face coverings may be challenging for students, especially younger students, to wear in all-day settings such as school. Face coverings should be worn by staff and encouraged in students, particularly older students, if feasible, and are most essential in times when physical distancing is difficult. Information should be provided to staff and students on proper use, removal, and washing of cloth face coverings. Face coverings are not recommended for babies or children under the age of 2, or for anyone who has trouble breathing or is unconscious, incapacitated, or otherwise unable to remove the covering without assistance. And then it just goes on and says what the cloth face coverings are for. So a lot of people are saying that these memes are saying that they're required for children over 2. And that is not actually, you'll see, that is not what they say. It just says wear masks over the age of 2. So yeah, it doesn't get into as much detail, but I think, again, they were just trying to summarize it. So I just wanted to point out that there is a little bit more information on mask wearing. And yeah, we'll get into the mask wearing in a little bit, but I just wanted to show that. So again, it just talks about hygiene. It talks about how frequently touched surfaces will be cleaned and disinfected. It talks about school buses, restrict mixing between groups, cancel all field trips. So as you can see, I'm not going to go through all of these here just because it is a lot more, it's a lot easier in the other format too. But if you're curious and if you don't believe me, and I always say that, don't just take my word for it. If you don't believe me, go to the CDC website. You can either download this or you can just open it up and you can see that, yeah, these memes are a good summary, and I really would not consider them to be false information. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that, yeah, all of this stuff is in here. So now I'm just going to use this one, and we're going to go over what guidelines the CDC is asking schools to do. And again, I'll just say what Instagram fact checker said, that these guidelines are they're not rules, they're recommendations. So I don't know how far schools will go when it comes to this, but this is what the CDC is asking. So wear masks over the age of 2. And you saw there's a little bit more detail than that. But what I'm going to say is that it is not healthy for any child to be wearing a mask for 6 hours a day, to be breathing in all of their own carbon dioxide. And I'm also willing to bet that it's going to be very distracting for kids to have that on their face all day long. They're going to be playing with it. And I've seen a lot of teachers actually posting online saying that that's really unreasonable, because they know that their kids are going to be fidgeting with the masks. They're constantly going to be touching their faces. And, when it comes to those disciplinary issues with kids talking and everything, they said they're not going to know who's doing it because they're hidden behind the masks. Now that's funny when you think about that aspect of it, but it really isn't funny for kids to be expected to wear masks all day long while they're at school. And I just want you, as we're going through each of these new guidelines, I just want you to picture yourself as a child. You know that something has been going on depending on the age. Younger kids know something different is happening. Older kids, of course, they know what's going on. But they're probably already very intimidated, a little frightened. They're going back to school. And so I want you to put yourself in their shoes and imagine what this is going to be like for these children upon their return. So the second one is no sharing of any items or supplies, all belongings in individual cubbies or labeled containers, no sharing electronic devices, toys, games, learning aids. For the most part, I think that that's reasonable. I think that it will be helpful for a lot of kids to have their own stuff like that. It's sad that they're not going to be able to play games together, but I think we all expected this to happen. Okay, next is desks 6 feet apart, all facing the same way. That's going to be really interesting for these schools to actually put into effect when you consider that a lot of these schools have like 30 kids in their classroom. Now, from what I understand, they're not going to have all of the kids go back all at one time. I could be wrong. But even so, like, what are they going to do once all of the kids are back and their desks have to be 6 feet apart? Anyway, distance on school buses, 1 child per seat, skip rows. And I'm just thinking to myself, how many bus trips is this going to be for these school buses? Next is install sneeze guards and partitions wherever you cannot space 6 feet apart. So for those classrooms that are more full, have more kids, yeah, they can have sneeze guards between the desks. To me, this seems so very dystopian to me. I can't imagine that this is not going to be intimidating for these kids. Next is one-way routes in hallways, tape on sidewalks and walls to assure kids stay 6 feet apart. This is sad. As homeschoolers, we're hearing all the time about socialization. Well, what about your kids being socialized and you just want to keep your kids secluded from everyone else. You want to shelter your kids. But now kids are going to be sent to school, and they are not supposed to be interacting with one another like that. They're supposed to, as someone else said, basically live in a bubble while they're at school. And they're doing all of the things that they have accused homeschoolers of doing all along, except homeschoolers usually were not doing that. So this is very, very sad that you've got all of these kids. They're probably missing their friends. They're going to go back to school, and they're not allowed to really interact much with their friends. They can't get close to their friends. They're going to have face masks, aren't going to be able to see their smiles. Anyway, let's go back to the next one. No communal shared spaces, cafeterias, playgrounds. Now, I don't know if, like Canada, this is also going to include the gym and the library. But again, imagine being a child. When you're a kid and you're at school and you have to sit at a desk all day, lunchtime and recess are like the two things that you look forward to the most, because not only can you let off all that steam, you can finally run around after being simultaneously bored and overstimulated at school all day. You can finally let off that steam, and you can talk to your friends. You can just, have fun with them, laugh a little bit, and that is all going to be completely taken away. No playtime outside. No cafeteria. And I'm imagining if it's anything like Canada, they're not going to have gym class anymore, or library, at least in the foreseeable future. Anyway, physical barriers or screens between sinks and bathrooms. Only pre-packaged boxes or bags of food instead of cafeteria food. Kids eat in classrooms. So I was just talking about that. They can't even, have fun at lunch anymore. They all have to sit in their classroom. No field trips, assemblies, or external organizations in the schools. Limit volunteers and visitors. So the days of parents going in to volunteer in class, they're likely gone. Field trips, one of the very few things that is actually fun in school, other than lunch and gym class and recess, which has already been taken away from them. Now they also will no longer have field trips either. They are also not going to have assemblies. And yeah, I remember some assemblies were boring. Some assemblies were fun. But even the boring assemblies were a welcome reprieve from the monotony of sitting in that classroom all day. And we're going to get down to this guideline in just a couple more of these. But you'll see that these kids, for the most part, won't even be changing classes anymore. They will be in the same room all day long with the same group of kids. They're not going to be able to leave to go anywhere except to their bathroom break. For how long? Are they still going to be going 6 hours a day? I can't help but thinking that this is going to be mentally traumatic for a lot of these kids. And you know what? I have to go back to the masks for a minute. Someone else mentioned this, that if you have an autistic child who is in school, how are they going to handle the mask issue? Anyway, so we're back down here. No field trips, assemblies, or external organizations in the schools. Limit volunteers and visitors. Then go down to the next one. Same children stay with same staff all day. No switching groups or teachers. So I just mentioned that. They're going to be with the same kids all day, same classroom, and same scenery. And it's not looking very pleasant. Stagger arrival and departure times for students to limit exposure to crowds of kids. And a lot of this stuff, it's funny to me because people go to Walmart, they go to Home Depot, they go to Target, they go to Giant, they go to all of these big box stores. And a lot of these big box stores, even if they are not letting in full capacity, are still very likely going to have more customers in their stores than the number of kids that will at least start out going to these schools. And I'm sorry, this is just, I can't help feeling so sorry for these kids that are going to be dealing with these things. Anyway, if possible, daily health and temperature checks. So are they going to take every single student's temperature every single day? Are they going to screen all of these kids every single day? It seems like a pretty hefty task, especially with these bigger schools. But again, I'm telling you that I'm saying these things as a parent, and I'm sure you're listening as a parent, but I also want you to listen as a child. I want you to imagine this through a child's eyes, going from what was once your school setting to this school setting. And then the last one says, and several rules about cleaning and disinfecting throughout the day and hand washing frequently. Which, I mean, to be honest, they should have always been encouraging hand washing anyway. That's not anything new. But, you know, I really hope that parents don't just dismiss these memes because they have people saying that they're giving out false information, or because, you know, Instagram says that it's partially false. But then if, like, a lot of people, when they see that, when they see the fact checker on Instagram, they'll just skip right over it. They'll just think, oh well, it's not even true, so I'm just not even going to bother looking at it, and they'll just scroll right past it. And that is what they want. That is why they put those fact checker things up, because they know that the majority of people won't bother looking. They won't look at the post, and they won't bother looking to see what was said to be wrong with it. But again, I actually wanted to record the Instagram post that I saw with the blue one that had the fact checker one up with it. But when I went back to do a little recording showing what the fact checker said and everything, the woman, because it was actually sent to me, someone messaged it to me on Instagram because I don't follow the woman who posted it. And then when I went back, because I was going to do that recording, she had set her account to private. I'm guessing because of the fact checker, because someone told me that they won't do the fact checker if you have a private account. I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, that's what I'm guessing. So no, I wasn't able to do the actual video of that. But yeah, that's what it said. When I clicked on it, said partially false. And I think it said that it was fact checked by USA Today. I thought that was weird. But anyway, yeah, that's who it said that it was fact checked by. And then it said that it was partially false because the CDC guidelines are recommendations and not rules. And I think you can see, again, here's the one that it was specifically on. It's all the same printing though. You'll see that. But if you read through this, nowhere does this call them rules. So I don't know where that fact checker, I don't know what it was referring to, because it doesn't say rules here at all. Again, I think this was just a way to discourage people from looking further into it and to actually knowing what they're going to be sending their kids into. So even if you don't have any kids who are in school, if you homeschool, or if you don't even have any kids anymore, if you have any friends or relatives whose kids are going to be going to school, let them know what their kids are going to be facing, and let them know that not only are these not incorrect, but they can go right to the CDC website and they'll see the very same thing, except obviously written with a bit more detail. But it's right there. It's right in front of your face. You can't even deny that these things are going to be happening. So I just encourage every parent out there with a school-age child, I want you to consider what you're sending your child into, because this is going to affect them physically, yes. Mentally, yes. And emotionally, definitely. That's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one over on Instagram because YouTube disables my comments. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.